Yeah, I know it's still Lent, the traditional season of penitence, but more importantly, it's the first day of spring, astronomically speaking anyway. I know, the daisies pied and violets blue, the lady smocks all silver white, and the cuckoo buds of yellow hue haven't painted our meadows with delight quite yet in these far northern latitudes, but they have in our imaginations after the longest, most isolated winter in living memory. You know, the air smells good out there, and the still dormant plant life is loaded with potential. I mean, the very word Lent means lengthening, the lengthening hours of sunlight, and the measurable fact that daylight is longer than nighttime after yesterday's equinox. I don't know how church people in the southern hemisphere handle the season of Lent and its solar overtones, but hey, that's not our problem here in sunny Alberta. If you go to New Zealand, ask them. So let's begin with prayer, and then we'll return to some themes and resources that we've used these past 3 months. Let us pray. Oh God, we travelers, walking toward the sun, can't see ahead. But looking back, the very light that blinds us shows us the way we came, the way along which blessing now appears, risen from unconsciousness into the light. And we, by your blessing brightly lighted, keep going toward your blessed light that to us is yet dark. So bless us as we emerge, hopeful from our isolation, and give us strength to participate in the new thing that you're doing. May all of us who have been asleep wake up and rise from the dead, so that Christ will shine on us.
As it says in the Gospel of Thomas, blessed are those who are pursued right into the depths of the heart. Only there will they come to know their true life. Blessed are the hungry ones, those who long. Their inner longings will be satisfied by the Spirit of life, the one and only.
Well, back in the dark days of December, our handbell choir, united in harmony, recorded this piece called Spirit of Life in our sanctuary with Susan Galloway at the piano. So yeah, I want to tie up some loose ends from previous videos and Zooms before we head into Palm Sunday, Holy Week, and Easter. We've spoken about waking up, rising from the dead, and letting Christ shine on you, as the 2 millennia old song quoted in the letter to the Ephesians put it. Well, as we talked about last January, the prayer of awakening, of awareness, the only prayer there is, I think, is becoming aware of the thoughts many of us have and have on a habitual, addictive basis. I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not healthy enough, I'm just a fraud, I'll never make it, I'm doomed to loneliness, depression, underemployment, whatever those thoughts are. If you sit with your thoughts for a bit, suddenly there is an awareness that's aware of those thoughts, but not part of them. Suddenly you stand behind those thoughts and watch yourself having them. Anybody can do this, any mature human being at all. And then you become aware of the self that is watching those thoughts. You become awareness itself, existence itself. Are you, that is your ego, there or not? Well, suddenly it doesn't matter. God is there. God is. The one who is there. Nothing more than that. Nothing else, in fact, is possible. Who you are as a person in society and community can get lost in this kind of spiritual activity. Your needs, your wants, your very identity takes a back seat, and this is a very good thing, spiritually speaking. But it can be disorienting and disconcerting. True prayer, awakening, rising from the dead isn't comforting at first, but it's a little scary, like stepping off a pier. Just to show how much a part of the spiritual tradition this disorientation can be, let's take a quick look at the Gospel of Thomas, as a number of us did back in February in the Monday Zoom classes. Now, Thomas is a collection of 114 sayings of Jesus discovered in an earthenware jar near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, in December of 1945. There's no nativity stories, there's no Pharisees or Sadducees, no passion narrative, no context or storyline at all. Just 114 sayings called logiai. Most are quite short, some are a bit longer. Now, this collection was well known and much referenced by writers in the 2nd century, 1900 years ago, but no one in modern times knew what the gospel actually said until that 1945 discovery. Now, some of these sayings sound a whole lot like sayings found in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and others were just unknown until this discovery. And some even run counter to what's written in the canonical Gospels. Here's one of the previously unknown ones, saying, or again, logion in Greek, number 2.
If you are searching, you must not stop until you find. When you find, however, you will become troubled. Trouble will give way to wonder. In wonder you will reign over all things. This sovereignty will be your peace.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're talking about when we take the time to be aware. At first it's trouble, scary even, and not particularly uplifting. Well, then why would we even want to do it? Why would we want to even begin? To sit quietly and become aware of our own thoughts and desires and feelings. Well, because Jesus says, trouble gives way to wonder, and in wonder you will reign over all things. Pretty big promise, that is. But wait, there's more. Listen to this saying, number 58, which sounds like a beatitude from the Sermon on the Mount, but different.
Blessed are the troubled ones, for they have found life.
I love that tidbit of wisdom. Blessed are the troubled ones, for they have found life. We're all troubled from time to time, and thus we're all blessed. Pretty good news. Then there's this bit of stand-up comedy from Jesus, which must have had him rolling in the aisles back there in Galilee.
If those leading you say to you, "Look, the kingdom of God is in the sky," well then, the birds will get there ahead of you. If they say, "Look, it's in the sea," then the fish will get there ahead of you. No, the realm of God is within you and all around you. When you come to know yourself, you will be known, and you will realize at last that you are a child of the living God. If, however, you never come to know yourself, then you live in poverty, and you yourself are that poverty.
Okay, maybe not a knee slapper, but back in the first century, that was pretty funny. Now, a snippet of this saying can be found in Luke's Gospel, but the rest of it is found only in the Gospel of Thomas.
When you come to know yourself, you will be known, and you will realize, you will be aware at last that you are a child of the living God.
Yeah, that's why we do this inner work, this prayer, this meditation, this silent awareness, this inner reflection. To find life, to feel the winds of God, and come to realize our true identities as children of the living God. Nothing is more valuable than that.
I feel the winds of God today, today my sail I lift. Oh, heavy oft with drenching spray and torn with many a rift. If oath but light the waters press, and Christ thy bark will use, I'll seek the seas at his behest, and brave another cruise. It is the wind of God that dries my vain regretful tears, until with braver thoughts shall rise the purer, brighter years. If cast on shores of selfish ease, for pleasure I should be, oh, let me feel your fresh wing breeze, and I'll put back to sea. If ever I forget your love, and how that love was shown, lift high the blood-red flag above, it bears your name alone. Great pilot of my onward way, you will not let me drift. I feel the winds of God today, today my sail I lift.
So, awareness. Many of us, well, all of us, have had subtle and circular awarenesses of the kind that I'm going to describe just now. That's all part of the process of coming to awareness itself, to existence itself, to the dazzling emptiness of the presence of God. So as I speak of some of the awarenesses that I've had and other poetic types have described, well, spend some time reflecting on your own experiences. There is not a much more valuable way to spend our hours here on earth than in this kind of inner self-reflection. And maybe that's the first awareness in this work, the fact that we're immersed in the passage of time here on this level of existence. And the older we get, and I couldn't say this if I were younger, the older we get, the faster time goes. That's true, isn't it? We really felt that in the pandemic. On this first full day after the spring equinox, we can say with Mark Twain that when spring comes and we catch spring fever, he writes, "You so deeply want, oh, you don't quite know what it is you want, but it fairly makes your heart ache. You want it so much." What is it that we want so much? Well, to slow it all down, I think. The daffodils come up so quickly, blazing glory, and then they die just as quickly. And we don't know if we'll even be here next spring. The beauty of these blossoming days is an aching beauty, isn't it? So here's the work. Here's the job of spiritual inquiry. And as members of a church, we are all recruited to this inner work. It's part of what we have to do. Pay attention to the ache and watch what it does. As I sit and examine my almost 68 years in this meditative way, what comes up most often, what's usually the top card on the deck is not so much desire or that ache of passing beauty, but a weariness with the same old issues that I've always had. The same boring flaws and anxieties and pains that I've been gnawing on for years, which leaves them just soggy and tasteless with nothing interesting remaining about them. And nothing left to do but spit them out and dig even deeper for some fresher pain that I might have buried long ago. And once I feel those feelings, once I feel the boredom and the sogginess and the blandness, the digging can begin to feel exciting. What else is there to feel? I ask myself. And then comes this rush of desire to see with fresh eyes, to hear with new ears, and feel things just as intently as I did when I was younger. I mean, really young, before expectations, before words, before memory itself. And sometimes that freshness deep down actually comes in a kind of rush, and I think, God is here. But then it fades, and I become aware of time passing. Another day, another week, another month, another year. We've all heard this song before. Our lives are built of the same few notes, repeated over and over. We become aware of the fact that our ordinary waking lives aren't great symphonies, full of astonishments and satisfying harmonies. No, they're more like a musical earworm, a song or a jingle that goes on until the tune gets stuck in our heads. Sometimes a new verse is ready to be sung, but for the life of us, we can't remember how it's supposed to go. We want so desperately to believe that every moment has potential, that there's something miraculous and supremely valuable hidden all around us, so that if we'd only stop to seize the day, we could hold on to it and carry it with us forever. But, if we sit with ourselves for a minute or 10 or 20, we realize that most of life is forgotten instantly, almost as if while it's happening. A day like today will slip through our fingers and dissolve into oblivion, like most of the other 25,000 or so days that we've lived here on earth. That's the rhythm of ordinary time, a rhythm that we can become aware of, that we can hear, the featureless stretches between one vivid memory and the next, the 1,000 acts of ordinary maintenance that we do every day. We keep our bodies going, hauling them back and forth from one place to the next. We breathe in and out. Things fall apart. We pick up the pieces and we keep calm and carry on. Most of our lives, we discover, are spent in the empty quarter, the stretches of prairie and desert, very much like this. And we fly over them to get to the sweet parts, to get to the oases. And we ask ourselves, if we're honest, how could we spend so much time just trying to keep our little single-engine plane in the air, watching for a glimmer on the horizon, waiting for that moment when we can finally say, ah, there it is. And then, none of this is linear, of course. There aren't numbered steps in the manual of spirituality. But then, when we're meditating on the emptiness, meditating on the fact that there's so much of this world that we'll never experience, we become aware that it's all happening. It's all real, whether we'll remember it or not. The labor of each humble moment has given us everything we have. But the repeated song comes back and we still hunt for the treasure, for the aha. And we've done that since we were kids. And sometimes we feel like it's somewhere very close and we'll notice something gleaming just below the surface of things. But we find that the deeper we dig and the more we try to dive into the experience of life, the more time we actually spend in the shallow end, wanting to go deeper again, but just not knowing how. Then there comes a moment, and so many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. There comes a moment when everything falls silent. Logical thoughts loses its meaning. Words lose their meaning. And it all mixes together until we can't tell the difference between the ordinary and the epic, between the treasure and the turds. We stop waiting for some other meaning to arrive. We notice how transitory and fleeting it all is, how delicate and fragile and magnificent it all is. We become aware that we're just camping out on this earth in this time, and that our lives are more than planning for security, working hard for a cause, keeping our health and keeping our stuff safe and in working order, or even more than having good stories to tell our grandchildren. These lives we're living, these little chronologies that we've been given, exist for their own sake. And it's all right to simply take it all in once in a while. And the pandemic has given us that opportunity. Let me ask you this. Have you ever found yourself in a kind of trance in which you become completely absorbed in sensory details? I don't know, bees buzzing around a flowering bush, the smell of the air after a thunderstorm, the feel of a breeze brushing your cheek, or snow falling gently in the driveway, a cloud of cream swirling in a coffee cup. Just soaking in the experience of being alive, just today, in that moment. And if you have, this is the realm of the Spirit. This is what Jesus may be talking about in the Gospel of Thomas when he says, trouble will give way to wonder. In wonder, you will reign over all things, and this sovereignty will be your rest. It's the realization that we are alive, and always will be, in some form or another. It's silence, which isn't the absence of noise, but the absence of resistance to God. That's the work we're doing. That's the spiritual journey. Amen. Well, this is the place in the video service where we'd offer our guided prayer that ends with the Lord's Prayer, as we do every week. But this time, this week, this Sunday before Palm Sunday, I'd like to suggest that when the video's over and you've heard the anthem that we're about to play, find a quiet place, either indoors or now outside, it's warm enough, and just sit in the silence and see what happens. Take notice of your thoughts and then let each one go and see what comes up next. So, there's no words, no prayer this week, anyone that I'm going to guide anyway. There's just silence, which is the absence of resistance to God. Now, the song that we've got here is next is a prayer for God to take root in our hearts. But of course, God has already taken root in our hearts. And all we have to do is keep watering those roots and nourishing the soil with whatever manure we've got in our lives and pay attention to the fact that it's all happening. So by way of benediction, here's one more logion from the Gospel of Thomas. Let us give attention to the living presence while we are alive on earth, so that when we die and want to see God, we may have the power to do so.